The Football Trash Talk for Real Fans podcast is an unscripted and free-flowing conversation that may touch on mature subjects. While the opinions are real, the research probably isn't, and we can't help that Atticus will probably talk about the Knicks.
And here we go.
He trucked dudes. It wasn't just in a preseason game. He did it pretty consistently. He left dudes saying, "What happened?"
You better put some respect on his name when we're talking about the champion, the Davion Clowney.
And I'm just going on eye test here, right? Like, I like the look of this coaching staff, you know?
Alright, enough of this. Let's see what kind of shit we get into today. Lloyd, it's all yours.
It's just a weird
Brandon?
Yeah, it's Brandon.
Wow. Where have you been? All of this good news, good juju floating around MetLife during that draft, and you were real quiet.
Speaks for itself, Atticus. I don't have to say much about it.
It was a pretty good draft for you guys. Listen, you got Kai Becton last year. You got another stud anchoring that line this year. You got the quarterback you wanted. Tell me how you really feeling, Brandon.
I mean, I feel like for the first time in my life, the Jets are actually doing something right.
Wait a minute, Brandon. You can't say the same thing you said when they got Darnold. You got to rephrase that or something.
Well, when they got Darnold, they did the right thing. They just didn't do anything else correctly. You know, like Darnold was a fine pick. I'm very confident to say he would have been much different if they actually did something to help him.
He's going to be much different on his new team.
Maybe. You know, the Jets have also gone out of their way to ruin him. So I will see how that works out. But, you know, the Darnold pick, I still think if they did the right thing and built around him like they did in this draft and made an effort to help him, he would be a good quarterback. There's no question. Sam Darnold was not the problem. You know what I mean?
I think Mike, Chris, and I said that quite a few times on the podcast.
Yeah, but you know, you also got a lot of people like, oh, they should just stop and use these picks and keep Sam. But you know, you just reach a point where you just move on. You know,
I think they did the right thing.
I think they did too. And there's also money. You know, his fifth-year option is $18 million. You want to pay Sam Darnold $18 million to find out if he doesn't suck? I don't.
Right.
I mean, you know, and then you know, but you got to ask yourself too. You know, if you're the Panthers, you know, you're sitting there. You just traded for Sam Darnold. You could have had Justin Fields at 8. I would much rather have.
They believe in Darnold.
I think they didn't believe Justin Fields would be there at 8.
Yeah.
More than anything. I think they probably were like, okay, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields probably goes 3. And then they're left with like Mac Jones and you know, Trey Lance and whatever. But, and even if Mac Jones went 3, I think there was still a huge thought that Justin Fields goes in the top 5. You know, and they didn't want to play the game. They should have.
I think that the Eagles had their eyes on Justin Fields.
The Eagles?
No.
I think they did.
No. They would have taken him then.
I think they were set on a wide receiver, and that's why they jumped over the Giants, because they knew the Giants were taking a wide receiver.
Let me ask you a question, because there was a lot of hoopla about that, right? Do you think that at that level, there's that level of petty to do something that petty?
Yeah, is it petty?
Was all about the Giants.
If it's petty, let's pretend it was a different team that wanted a wide receiver at 11, right? Let's just say it wasn't the Giants. You know, Dallas wasn't taking a wide receiver. They were going Micah Parsons. That was a done deal, especially after Lee went away, right? So they knew the Giants weren't going to take him. So let's just swap picks, because number 11 is targeting the wide receiver that's left, right? And that was Devontae Smith. So is it really petty, or is it a smart move?
No. What I'm saying is,
It's petty. It's petty.
listen.
Wait, hold on. The Eagles are the
Did
same
the
team.
Eagles want Devontae Smith, or did they want to fuck the Giants, or were they just happy that both would happen with that trade?
The Eagles are the
Both.
same team that traded up in front of Dallas in Dallas to take Dallas Goddard. All right. Well, let's just be real here. All right. There's a level of petty involved. And you know what? You know who should feel stupid for being petty? Not the Eagles, the Cowboys, because one pick later, look at the Giants.
Yeah.
One pick later.
The Cowboys look stupid for sure.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they got a great wide receiver though. It worked out.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
It's yeah. I mean, what Lawyer's saying is true. I mean, they knew the Giants were going to take him. They needed a receiver. They did what they had to do. Was there a level of petty? Absolutely, but it was the right move.
It just makes it sweeter.
Yeah,
that the Giants were involved in that transaction.
Sweeter,
yeah.
Not
sweeter.
It's the fact that you know what it is. It's the fact that the Eagles and Cowboys decided to transact.
Right.
And when they called each other, they said, "Let's fuck them over." Come on, they did.
Oh my god. That shit was nuts. Hey, Chris, you're not the only one that gets to wear a T-shirt now, buddy. Outdoors. I think that T-shirt actually goes against our community standards, though. We may have to blur it. Like, we got standards in our group.
Yeah, we could scrub that.
I think he's having connection issues.
Well, one, he's muted, and two, he's having glitchy issues.
It's like the Browns' career. Glitchy
and he
issues.
is dying to speak. He is absolutely like hemorrhaging out of his brain to speak about the Browns draft.
They had a very good draft, and to get Osu Koromora in the second, middle of the second, late second, that was outrageous. I mean, shame on the NFL, man. I was looking at that guy at 34, and then I actually forgot Elijah Moore was still on the board, to be very honest with you. But that guy, I mean, man, he had no business falling out of the first. None.
Chris got crib notes right now. He can't wait for his signal to improve so he could just start bloviating some bullshit. I want to hear it too.
I don't know if it's going to be bullshit. I think the Browns are probably.
That's just what I'm saying because it's trash talk. That's all.
All right. So it's bullshit. I agree.
Can you guys hear me now?
No, we can't.
Thank God we can't.
I just want to know real quick. You guys?
Oh, what a perfect time for him to lose signal.
Real quick. Bye.
That was quick as shit. Oh, man. I just went to Lowe's. I can't even tell you guys how expensive lumber is. I'm building a fence around a part of my property, and it's insane.
Take out a second mortgage.
I know. Give it up, Chris. Even Facebook doesn't want to hear this shit. Zoom has intervened and said, we don't want to hear it.
Can I say something that hasn't been said in a really long time?
Yeah, say it.
The Jets have really good wide receivers.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
No,
Your vision is just tough right now. What do you think's going to happen in the East?
I think
you got like 2 years you can play and build, you know?
Yeah, I don't even care this year. I mean, this year they'll be better, but I'm not like sitting here going, "Oh, we're gonna make the playoffs." I mean, I think 2022 is when it starts because we have 2 firsts, 2 seconds. I think we have 12 total picks next year. That's where we see it. That's where it finishes, you know. And I wouldn't be surprised if next year we spend another first or 2 on the offensive line and just build like a Cowboys-esque offensive line from a few years ago. Wouldn't be surprising.
Wow, that'd be a killer line.
Yeah.
People what you're working with now.
Yeah. Now the right side is still a little iffy. You know, it's the same as last year. But the big problem, one of those guard spots is taken care of.
Right.
I mean, Alex Lewis was absolute garbage juice. I mean, yeah.
Well,
And let's not forget too, guys. Just by removing Adam Gase, the team will probably win 3 more games.
That's fun. It's true.
It is true. I know. I didn't laugh.
Oh, man. Well, as long as your QB rolls left for a couple of games, you'll be good. Just stay away from that right side.
It's Mormon Mahomes. I like Zach Wilson. He's got I like Sam, but Zach has got like a thing about him. He's got the it factor, that thing you can't really explain. You know, he's got the it. He has it.
No one's mentioned this, but like I was watching the family in the green room or whatever you want to call it backstage with the Wilson clan. That whole family's got the it factor. Like they just look good.
Yeah, they do. It's true.
What was the Bengals thinking? The Bengals was just like, fuck this draft, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. I don't know what they did there. They passed on.
They should have went line. I mean, Joe Burrow was getting I mean, he was injured for half the year behind that fucking line. They did nothing to help him.
Nothing. 0.
I know Chris is happy about that. Chris just can't get a connection.
Oh, I'm happy with.
Oh, there he
Can
is.
you guys hear me now? Finally, there
Finally.
I am. We're trying no video, no just audio. Let's see how that works.
We can
Yeah,
hear you.
no, the AFC North, like the Steelers, they can't hear me. Fuck.
The
can.
Steelers had a pretty good draft. I thought
Yeah.
the Steelers did okay.
They did all right. Browns heavy favorites to win that division, though.
Yeah,
Heavy.
Browns knocked it out the park in the draft. I mean, they did a good job. The Ravens had a pretty good draft too.
Who did?
The Ravens.
Ravens. Yeah, they did. They had a decent draft. I think the Jaguars had a bad one, to be honest with you. I don't like what they did. Like, obviously, I have nothing against Trevor Lawrence, but from there, I don't like drafting a running back high, unless you're like a running back away. It just doesn't. When's the last time that worked?
Yeah.
Well, and
You
they
know,
didn't
it's like-
need a running back. Like James Robinson came out of nowhere and had a really good rookie year. So like I don't know why they even went running back.
Me neither, man.
They should have done what the Jets did, right? You go get your quarterback and then go get him a lineman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Jets did it right. They did it right.
And the Jets still got a running back.
Yeah. I actually kind of want a Kenny Gainwell, but Michael Carter's good. I have no problem. It's
honestly,
split hairs.
I saw that Brandon was on, and I couldn't miss the opportunity at speaking at you directly because I haven't seen you in a long time. But I got to run, guys. I got to finish building this fence, and my daughter's got a softball picture day or some shit. So, and it's perfect because as soon as I leave, Chris will have his audio fixed, and I won't have to hear it. So, nice time for me to exit stage left. All right, guys. Have a good day.
All right, Atticus.
All right.
Gainwell was probably the best value pick the Eagles got.
I thought so, but I'm a little confused why they did it. Like, do they not think Miles Sanders is that guy?
They like running backs, man.
I know they do, but like, by the way, what happened in the Eagles war room where Howie Roseman went to give that guy the fist bump? What was that?
So apparently that guy was really sold on one player, and the rest of the room went after the defensive tackle from USC. So he wasn't happy because he lost.
Okay.
Yeah, and it got caught on tape.
That was weird.
It was.
I don't think I've never seen anything like that before. The only weirder thing I think I've ever seen, and I'll never forget this, and no one talked about it, which I thought was so weird, was last year in the draft, when they zoomed into the Jets war room when 2 years ago, when Mike McCagnon was picking, there was no one in the room with him. He was sitting in the room all by himself. And I remember seeing that, and this is before obviously he got fired and all that stuff. I'm like, uh-oh, where's everybody? Like, when's the last time you saw one dude sitting in a war room alone?
Never. Except last year.
And he ended up getting fired like 2 weeks later. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, speaking of weird war room incidents.
I mean, I don't think, there might have been a stretch there. I'd have to look back at the draft and see who else could have been targeted. The Dickerson, I mean, it fills a need, but he had some injury issues, so that might be a stretch too. But the Eagles are known for that. They draft players that have injuries. They just do. I mean, overall, it was solid, not great. I give him a B. But that's probably the highest draft I've given the Eagles in about 3 years.
Yeah, I hear you. By the way, a lot of people are saying the Jets overpaid to move up for Vera Tucker, and I just don't get it. Can someone explain this to me?
Who says they overpaid?
Like it's like more people than should be saying it. And I'm just like, they gave 2/3, got a fourth, and moved up from 23 to 14. Like, what's the problem? I don't know. I'm just it's something I've seen enough to bring up that I'm like, what? Like, I don't get it. Maybe it's just me.
I think it was solid. I said it when it happened. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. There's nothing not to like about it.
Especially the way the team drafted last year, and you've already said it. You got one side of your line solidified. If they solidify next year in the draft, the other side, like, I didn't even think about that. But that's how Dallas built their line, and that's how they won.
Yeah.
Championships.
Yep. I mean, yeah. I just like it, man. I like what I'm seeing. I haven't seen a Jets coaching staff with this much energy since 2009.
I liked watching the Elijah Moore pick and watching the War Room after that, and then
they were stoked. They were like, you should have seen Joe Douglas when he traded up for Vera Tucker. He was like going crazy. It's just good stuff.
All right. Trying this one more time. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what you been doing, Brandon?
Not much, man. Just in the process of trying to buy a new house. Got some issues going on with that, but otherwise, nothing really. Just chilling. Tired. You
still trying, Brandon?
Say what?
I mean, Chris. Sorry. He's still trying. I think maybe next week, if everybody's available again, we recap the draft and redo projections, right? Because I need to change my Jets projection.
Oh, tell me more.
The over/under was 6, and with a new coach and a new quarterback, it was a push for me. Could have gone slightly over, could have gone slightly under. I like your statement that just being gone from Adam Gase should be 3 wins. So that puts him at 5, right?
Yes, sir.
And their draft was super phenomenal. And, I think, I'd like to believe quarterback play takes them to 7 or 8 wins, especially with the extra game. Although the extra game is against the Eagles, so that's an L.
That's what L. Yeah, I don't think they've ever beaten the Eagles in history. Literally. I don't think in franchise history they've ever beaten the Philadelphia Eagles.
I don't. I
Okay, I think
probably,
I'm finally here.
What?
I think I'm finally here. Can you guys? Am I coming through? Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, finally. No video, but we got in. So how you guys doing? I've heard bits and pieces. Brandon, I hear you're looking for a house. We too are looking for a house. I've heard bits and pieces of your whole conversation, but I have no idea what you guys are talking about right now.
We're talking about how
Go
the
ahead.
Eagles are a better team than the Jets historically.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Jets had a really good draft. I like, so when we were talking before the draft, I think we all had the Jets at 5-6 wins. I still think it's going to be hard just because it's like a really good coaching division, and you got some, like, the jury's still on what the Patriots will look like, but you have the Bills, you have the Dolphins, who are both really good. The Jets post draft, I'm still at 6-7 wins, not because of they're going to play bad. I'm definitely more on what Loy was saying, where I still think they're going to lose, but they're going to lose close a lot this year because you got a rookie quarterback, you have a rookie head coach. There's going to be some growing pains, but I like what they did a lot. And they did it the right way. It's not just taking offensive players; it's working on the line. They got that dude last year whose name I can't remember, but is a beast, and now they got another guy that's a solid anchor. So I mean, they're definitely improving the line. They got more. Brandon and I were talking in Facebook Messenger, and I said, if you guys can get more, it's gonna be a real coup for the first 2 rounds, and they went ahead and drafted him. So I like a lot what they did. I still think it's gonna be hard just because of their division. Like, I'll go ahead and say, if they were in the East, I definitely say they're winning closer to 9 games just based on what I saw, because I think Saleh is going to do a really good job, but I think their division is going to keep them down a little bit. One more good offseason, though, and I think they'll be right in the thick of it.
I agree with everything you just said.
It's almost Browns-esque.
I will say, go ahead.
Right? Like the
speaking of Browns-esque,
let me finish.
Go ahead, sorry.
Before you get all crazy. With the Browns went 7-9, and then they went 11-5 last year. So I see something very similar to the Jets. I can see the Jets go 7-10, maybe 8-9, right? If the ball just bounces their way, and then the following year I see them vying for a playoff spot. Just see that happening.
Speaking of Browns-esque, can we talk about the Giants for a second?
Yeah.
So I know, so apparently they're getting good draft grades, but here's a little thing. I look at when you load up the offense and then don't address the biggest need on your offense, which is your line, you turn into the 2018 Browns, where it's just a real frustrating thing to watch. It's great. Having all these weapons is great and spectacular. Trading back and getting extra first-round picks is great and spectacular. But when you're not hitting on the picks, you're not addressing your biggest needs. I mean, we talk about it all the time on this podcast. What's the point in having all these weapons if you don't have a line that's going to keep your quarterback upright? Like, I don't understand why the line wasn't addressed at all. Did they even draft a line? I think they drafted like a late round, like a 5th round lineman, if I'm not mistaken.
No, not offensive line. They didn't draft any offensive linemen.
And their offensive line is garbage. Like, I know Atticus isn't on here anymore, but it is. They were showing the rankings during the thing. They're like the 31st or 32nd, like everything. They were the 31st or 32nd best offensive line in every category. So that's great that you reloaded your wide receivers, but if Daniel Jones is on his back the entire time, he's not gonna be able to throw the ball to him. So I don't know what they're trying to do. They should have addressed the line. And like I said, this is Gettleman in a nutshell. He makes that great trade with the Bears where they pick up some extra picks, but then he drafts a receiver who, there were better receivers, in my opinion, on the board still. He could have gotten a little later, although I guess Urban Meyer's come out and said they were going to take him at 25, so what do I know? But, yeah, I don't know. I will say, they'll be fun to watch when they play like a team that can't rush them, but, any team with a halfway good defensive line, they're going to struggle with.
I mean, I agree with everything you said. I'm confused. Like, their needs going into the draft were offensive tackle, offensive guard, center, inside linebacker and outside linebacker. The only one that they addressed on that is outside linebacker. That's the only thing they addressed. And I'm confused with the grade too. I think they got a high grade just because of the trades they made, right? And just because of the draft capital that they acquired, moving forward. So I mean, we'll see. Kadarius Toney still confuses me. Brandon and I were talking about that earlier. Like he's a good receiver, but there was other quality players there. When they picked, I just don't.
Right.
I don't see it. The Ojulari from Georgia, solid pick. I mean, I can't be mad at that one whatsoever. But that's it for me with the Giants. I don't see it. And I agree. Like, you have all these weapons, but your offensive line is still dreck. Daniel Jones, as he's kind of middle of the road as far as performing under pressure. And we'll see.
I don't get the obsession with Daniel Jones at all. I just don't get it. I feel like he's the guy that had like 2 really good games his rookie year. That game he beat Tampa, and everyone's just holding on to it. Like he's just not good. I'm sorry. What has Daniel Jones done that makes people think that?
I think he could be like decent. Like he could be like, honestly, if I'm being completely honest, the gap between, say, Daniel Jones and Baker Mayfield, I don't think is that large. The difference is Baker Mayfield's behind a better line, and he's got a coach that's playing to his strengths. Like what I see happening with the Giants is Daniel Jones is going to get creamed this year because he's got no line. He's going to underperform. They're going to take him out, and then they're going to be at the top of the draft next year looking at a quarterback instead of addressing the line again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great that he stockpiled all these draft picks. It's just a shame that he's not going to be around to place. Acquiring the draft picks is only half the battle. Hitting the targets is the other thing you need to do, and they are not. They don't seem to be able to do that. Gettleman just doesn't seem. I don't know. I don't know what their identity is supposed to be, and I don't think Gettleman does either, and that's the problem.
I mean, I agree with a lot of that, except I think there is a vast difference between Daniel Jones and Baker Mayfield. And forget the Brown situation. He's just a better player in every way. He just is. Daniel Jones is not good. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not. I just have to – someone has to say it. He's not a good quarterback. He's not. The guy has fumbled more than any quarterback I've ever seen.
Right.
He hasn't improved. He just has not improved. Like, I'm sorry. I think that the fact that here's my issue with Dave Gettleman's offseason. The fact that they're going out of their way to build around Daniel Jones is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The guy hasn't. If anything, they should have been taking Justin Fields, as far as I'm concerned. I get it. At this point, you don't because you've taken a path, right, and that's fine. But I think it's the wrong one. I just do.
So what did we say? Like before, I know Lloyd. Before the draft, we were talking Giants might be a sneaky good team in the East. Do you still see that, or are you kind of cooling off on them now that they've basically not addressed their biggest need?
I've cooled off a little bit, right? Like I think their defense is still stellar, and it's going to be better this year, right? It will, right? And you have some really high-powered offenses in the East. Let me rephrase that. You have some high-powered offenses they're going to have to play, so they'll be in games. I just don't know if I don't trust Daniel Jones to finish the game. I just don't. And just to take it a step further with the comparison to Baker Mayfield, like LOM is the first thing that comes to my mind with Baker Mayfield. He's a leader of men, right? Like Daniel Jones doesn't have that factor. He just doesn't. He doesn't exude that quality. And say what you will about Jalen Hurts, and my book's still out on him. It could go either way. But for whatever reason, he's got that team believing in him, right? Like they want to play for Jalen Hurts. So it's a big thing, right? Like, no one wanted to play for Wentz, and where's he at now, right? Like for whatever reason, they didn't want to play for him. So we'll see what happens in Indianapolis. But going back to, what I think with the Giants, I got to go. It's probably Washington's division to lose at this point. You know, although their offense to me, like I don't believe in Fitzpatrick. You know, he's a 500 quarterback. That's where I'm at. And Dallas can do Dallas. They can do Dallas things. I mean, on paper, they should fucking run away with it. And they got a stud for a tight end in the draft. No, I'm wrong. Pittsburgh got that guy.
If Dallas's defense can get it together, they're the best team in the division. Right now, until we see that, it feels like Washington. But just to be clear, I like what the Giants did in the offseason generally. I have no problem with it. My only problem is that I just don't think it's worth doing for Daniel Jones. And the reason they did it, let's be honest, is because Dave Gettleman's job on the line. That's number one. That's what it told me. The fact that he's tied to Daniel Jones and he's basically trying to put a product on the field that keeps his job. That's the only reason he went on this spree. All right. Because otherwise, in this year, you look at what these other receivers got. Like I had certain Giant fans saying, "Oh, look what the Jets just paid Corey Davis." I'm like, yeah. Do you see what you just paid Kenny Galladay? The guy can't stay healthy. You just paid him $86 million.
Overpaid.
I would probably I would take Corey Davis over Kenny Galladay.
He stays on the field.
Yeah. I just I don't know, man. The Giants are confusing to me. But at least it's clear what their plan is. Before it wasn't. I didn't know until this offseason what the hell Dave Gettleman was trying to do. Now I know what he's trying to do. I just don't agree with him doing it with Jones. That's all. Everything else is fine. The corners he signed, very good. I like it. Adoree's a great signing. I don't dislike Kenny Galladay. I think he's a very good player. They did what they had to do. I just think and even Daniel Jones, man, with the Giant fan base has been like a roller coaster, right? It's like they booed him the second he was drafted. Then next thing you know, they all love him. Now they're just like, now they don't know what to say. I don't know. You're talking about Lloyd, leaders of men. You know what's interesting, and something I never saw from Sam was that quality. He always seemed to me like the kind of guy who has ability, but didn't have the confidence. He never had the confidence. Yeah. And this goes back to college, the more I look at it. He just never had confidence. He always second-guessed himself. He always, and that's why I like Zach Wilson. That's before I was talking about the it. Zach Wilson has confidence. And confidence is huge in this game. Because if you're second-guessing your decisions, you're going to make mistakes. Zach Wilson, the one thing he does not lack is confidence.
I do wonder, though, does Zach Wilson need a permission slip signed by a guardian before he can have full-time employment? Because dude looks like he's 12.
He does look like he's 12. I agree. but he plays like a big boy, so it doesn't matter.
So you guys are probably already touched on it, but like I said, I've been spotty and in and out. Lloyd, what did you think of the Eagles draft?
I give him a B, right? Like it wasn't a great draft, but I think it was a good draft. I think Devontae Smith is a solid pick. I like the fact that they went line with their second pick with Dickerson. There's some health issues there though with him. Like he's been injured. I think they got a steal with Gainwell, and also that who they get late. They got somebody late.
Yeah, Gainwell was high on my board. I was again messaging Brandon during the draft saying that's who I wanted the Browns to take because eventually we're gonna have to get rid of Hunt. We're not gonna be able to keep both of them forever, and I thought he would be a great replacement. So I think I even messaged in the group or in our little chat when we were doing. I said I would trade you. I love Gainwell. That's a great pickup. I will say for the Eagles, I feel like it's kind of hard to judge because they have so many holes. No offense, but they had a lot of needs, so it's hard to so their draft tends to be more all over the place because they're trying to address a bunch of things at once. So it's harder to be like focused. Like where the Jets were, where they had an average defense, so they just loaded up offense for their new quarterback. Or the Browns, who obviously need to load up on defense. It's easier to like when you're just focusing on one side of the ball because you don't have as many holes to fill.
The one thing I will say that I feel I've been very careful not to be overly exuberant, but the one thing I will say that I'm very excited about the Jets defense is that front seven. I mean, the Jets' defensive line is going to fly under the radar entering the season. I mean, they got Quinnen, Sheldon Rankins, Carl Lawson, Franklin Myers, very underrated player. They're loaded. Vinny Curry, who's fine as a situational. He's a good situational pass rusher. And then, not for nothing, Mosley is coming back. I know Mosley hasn't played in a while. I get it. I get the whole thing. But he is coming back. Like the Jets are basically, it's as if they signed CJ Mosley this offseason. So there's a lot. The secondary is a little like, we'll see what happens. But in the San Francisco defenses, I mean, outside of Richard Sherman, could you name a cornerback on that team? I mean, they don't. That's not the way their defense works, right? And so, right. I'm pretty excited about the front seven for the Jets. If I can confidently say anything this season, because I have to see how the offense works out. We have to see Zach Wilson and what he actually looks like in rookie year. I'm very confident the pass rush will be extremely good. That I feel good about.
So there's, the other thing about draft weekend that I like is it's a roller coaster of emotion for certain teams. And one team in particular was a little all over the place as far as the draft, their quarterback situation, a couple other things. We happen to have a diehard Packers fan here in the car seat next to me. I'm going to turn it over to her for a second so we can get the latest on Aaron Rodgers and his wanting to play for the Las Vegas Raiders for some reason.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I don't know why everyone's suddenly linked to the Raiders.
But yeah, so Lisa, what did you think of the Packers draft? Let's get a couple thoughts on what you think about the Aaron Rodgers situation.
Well, we'll leave the Aaron Rodgers situation aside because it's at this point it's pure speculation and whatever.
Oh no, we deal with speculation. I want to hear nothing but.
Well, I mean, so does everyone after this last weekend. In true Packers fan fashion, we usually don't get too excited about our drafts because our front office just usually shits the bed. I'm actually not all that unhappy with our draft. The Rodgers target drama notwithstanding, we managed to fill some gaps. We needed a corner. Stokes is fast. Kevin King, I think we all saw how abysmally he did in the game against Tampa in the NFC Championship. I'm happy with our wide receiver, although our center, replacing Corey Linsley, who came out of Ohio State, it'll be interesting to see how they develop him, considering he's not the fastest off the ball. And I don't know if I necessarily would have taken him, but I think we at least addressed the gaps that we had.
Overall, what would you give there? What would you give there if you just give it a grade? What would you say?
I'd say A- to B+.
Okay.
I wouldn't have minded taking the wide receiver in the first, but I'm happy with Stokes.
Okay.
I'm excited to see
One last question, then I'll turn it back over to the guys. How do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to look in silver and black?
Are you trying to just get kicked out of this car right now? Because I'm driving.
There it is. So yeah. So do what do you guys think of the Packers? I'll just steer it back to you guys. What do you guys think of the Packers draft and the Aaron Rodgers drama in general? I know they caught up with him in the airport afterward, and he's saying it's unfortunate it got out, but he didn't deny that it got out. So what do you guys think? And why do you guys think all these top flight quarterbacks keep getting linked to the Raiders for some reason?
Well, if you're asking me to get into the mind of John Gruden and why he dismantled his top offensive line, I couldn't tell you. I don't know why the Raiders seem to be linked to all these quarterbacks, especially since Derek Carr is coming off his best season yet. Makes no sense. As for the draft of the Packers, so I will say I like that they took a cornerback. Kevin King is obviously a liability. I do think, and I've said this for a while, well, on that pick, I'm not a scout, so I'm not going to pretend I know better than a professional football team. It just felt odd to me that they took Stokes there. Like, I get taking a corner. It was just weird that they took Stokes. I feel like he wasn't the best corner on his own team in college. I'm not saying he won't be a good corner in the league. I'm just saying relative to what was still available, It just felt like a strange pick, but they addressed the need, so that's good. I'm not going to knock them for that. Hold on. And I like Amari Rodgers a lot, and I've been knocking the Packers for a couple of years for not taking a wide receiver because you got to give A-Rod a little help. I actually think Amari Rodgers is a very good player, and I think he'll fit what they do there nicely. I would have preferred to see the Packers take Elijah Moore first and then come back in the second with a corner. But either way, I'm nitpicking. They addressed the right things, especially in the first 3 rounds. So, you know.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that because as we were watching the draft, that's kind of what we said. Like, you know, if there was any year to throw a bone, and even though maybe you could even make the argument that corner was the much bigger need, but I just feel with everything going on, if there's any time to just throw Rodgers a bone and be like, all right, we're gonna take a receiver in the first round, and with Moore sitting there,
I know.
That's why I was surprised they let him slide.
Totally.
You know, like I told you, props to the Jets for getting him in the second round.
And I've said even last year, like, you know, when that NFC Championship game happened and they lost, and everyone's focusing on Kevin King, you have to remember that Aaron Rodgers is playing with Devontae Adams, obviously a good player, Aaron Jones, okay, and then what? I mean, we're talking about Robert Tonyan, who had a good statistical season, but who the fuck is Robert Tonyan, first of all? And then you have Marcus Valdes-Scantling, who can't put more than one consecutive game together. They're not giving him. If they had drafted, I maintain this to this day, if they had drafted one of these receivers last year, even at Denzel Mims, we wouldn't be talking about Kevin King right now. We would have been talking about why the Packers probably beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl because they had no offensive line. That's how I feel. I really do. You got to give him weapons. You can't expect this guy. Look what he's doing with just Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. He's turning water to wine with a guy like Tonyan. And again, he's just got nothing else. You know, it's. I don't blame him for being mad. They just give the guy some weapons. And if you're not, and then even take this offseason, there's all these free agent wide receivers available. You couldn't sign one? Like, you couldn't have signed Will Fuller for 1 year, $5 million? You couldn't have done that for the guy? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And I don't blame the guy. I'd be pissed too. I mean, you had Will Fuller, and if you don't want to spend big money, right? Okay. You had Will Fuller. You could have signed Juju, which I thought would have been amazing for Green Bay. You could have signed Corey Davis. You could have signed Kenny Golladay, maybe too much out of the budget. Fine, I get that. There were so many receivers, and they didn't. I don't even know if they picked up the phone call. Picked up the phone.
Yeah,
I mean,
for as much as I rag on Juju, he would have been a great number 2 in Green Bay to Devontae Adams number 1. Yeah, no, and you know what? I just have this theory that they feel Aaron Rodgers plays better pissed off. So they just do everything they can to make him mad. So he'll just go out and throw 4,000 yards out of spite. That's the only thing I can figure at this point.
Who were Aaron Rodgers' wide receivers when he won the Super Bowl?
Jordy Nelson. Liesel, who was Aaron Rodgers' receiver when he won the Super Bowl? Jordan Nelson and Randall Cobb? Yeah.
And was James Jones on that team?
God, why can't I know that? I think Donald Driver was there too.
I think Donald Driver was in his last season. Yeah.
All right.
Greg Jennings, yeah.
As well. I don't.
So look what we're talking about. Instead of just having Jordy Nelson, he had all these other guys, and he won freaking Lombardi. Like, give the guy a wide receiver group. It makes me crazy when I watch them do this thing. It really does.
The thing is, he's good enough.
We had one of the top-ranked offenses last year. Like, that's the thing, is I can't get over how shitty and consistently bad our defense is. So I agree. Yeah, we probably should have picked up another wide receiver in the offseason. I would have loved to see Juju Smith-Schuster in green and gold. But at the same time, like, our defense was bad and we should feel bad. Like, we kept expecting Tom Brady to throw these little, like, small passes, short, like, routes and whatnot. And no, he just did Tom Brady things. And we got our ass handed to us.
Yeah, they could have. I mean, they could have. I think, you know, I think the Packers front office is just, it's not what it used to be. And First of all, we will, I think, all agree that the Jordan Love pick was a disaster and started this whole problem.
Agreed. Yep.
They took a quarterback in the it was the first round, right? They took a quarterback in the first round in a wide receiver class that was touted as the most loaded. So they basically said to Aaron Rodgers, "Hey, Aaron, thanks for everything. We're going to draft your heir apparent in 2 years from now instead of getting you one of these unbelievable wide receivers." Imagine if they had drafted DK Metcalf.
That'd be ridiculous. Yeah.
DK before the draft, and I'm not using hindsight. DK was one of the people where I was like, man, if he goes to Green Bay, that's going to be, because I always loved DK Metcalf. I was never down on him. I was never someone that was like, oh, I was infuriated when the Jets passed on him in the second round. You know, if DK had gone to Green Bay.
Well, they had 3 legitimate shots at him too. Like they didn't even have to take DK in the first or second round. He didn't go till late third. So
I know. You know, if they imagine they had taken DK last year, I guarantee you they would have at least been in the Super Bowl last year, for sure. I mean, I don't know. They just got to help him. I understand the defense has been bad, and I get that. I understand that. I'm not saying ignore the defense. They just seem to have not made progress in either category. That's what bothers me. Like, it's like nothing has gotten better. They haven't gotten him secondary weapons. They haven't improved the defense. So it's like, what are they doing?
Yeah, they're one of those teams, again, that had a definite focus, like a definite area they could have focused. It's like basically all they needed to do was draft a receiver and then focus on defense. It just doesn't feel like they did that, which is because the other thing is Aaron Rodgers, he's got enough in the tank, but he's also getting older. Like, you're not going to have – it's not like he's 23 and you got another 15 years of Aaron Rodgers. You got six or so, I'd say, you know, depending on how upright you can keep him. So, well, not to completely change gears, but I'd be remiss if I didn't get a few words in about the Browns. I thought we had a great draft. I'm not gonna lie, we got 2 definite day one starters in our first 2 picks. I'm excited to see what they do with JOK. You know, again, he's not prototypical, but our big need was pass protection, and I think we covered that in spades. You know, I would have been okay in the first round. We took Newsome, and then after I looked at him, like out of 200, didn't have a short season and everything, but out of like 250 pass plays that he did, he only up something like 18 receptions, or like 180 yards all season, which is
that's it. Lose me again, Chris.
Ward. We're gonna have a great secondary. But there's trees. That's a rough.
Well, he's gone. So we could probably finish that. I mean, I think it goes without saying that they had a phenomenal draft, right? Like I give them an A+ for their draft. The only need that you didn't fill was like a DN, some kind of edge rusher, but they did get Clowney in free agency. So, you know, it depends on what Clowney shows up, you know, and I think with the other side of the ball with Garrett, like he's not going to get double teamed. So it could be scary, you know, and then the rest of their defense is pretty solid. So I really like their late round pick of Tony Fields out of West Virginia. At linebacker. I think that kid's got some potential to be good. I was targeting him for a late round for the Eagles, but didn't get him. And JOK, we talked about it earlier, Brandon. Like that why he dropped out of the first round is beyond me. To even go deep into the second round is just crazy to me. So yeah, I agree. You know, they had a solid team last year, and they improved it. So I think they got a legitimate shot at winning their division. And, you know, I think it's between them and Baltimore.
I agree. And Loy, you're on the clock. Let's trade. Give me 1.9.
Am I on the clock?
Yeah, give me 1.9, dude. Let me give you one.
Who's available?
You want Tyreek Hill?
Not for one for.
Well, more than 1.9 for Tyreek Hill, let's be clear. But, you know.
No, I gotta take Waddle.
Oh, Waddle. Don't you need a quarterback?
I need lots of quarterbacks, but I think I might get one in the second round.
All right. Good luck. All right. I'm going to drop off.
All right.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Brandon.
Later.
Chris, we have technical difficulties. I don't think Chris is going to come back. He's on mute. So we're going to cut this one short. Chris. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
I'll just say this really quick, and then sorry it's been so disjointed today. The one thing I just want to add about the Browns draft is my favorite thing about trading up for JOK is they didn't even give up a pick to do it. They just swapped picks. So that just made I love our GM. He's real good. But anyway, sorry it's been so disjointed today. We'll do better next time.
All right, brother. Drive safe. We'll see you soon.
Take it easy, man. Bye.
Later. And we are back for part 2 of the football trash talk for real fans draft recap. Our house Cleveland Brown fans in true Cleveland Brown fashion, needed to be a little bit extra and get his time on camera so he can talk about how filthy awesome the Browns draft really was.
Well, I'm glad you kind of started out that way, because my question for you was, did you just want to admit that they had an awesome draft up front, or do you want to argue about it for 20 minutes and then decide that they had an awesome draft? So
I think there's no argument here. As indicated on part 1 of the podcast, we all agree Cleveland had a fucking stellar draft, man. Getting JOK, and that's just what I'm going to call him from now on. We'll just call him Joke.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We can go with that.
He, getting him and not expecting him to drop as far as he did was a stellar pick. I think they hit it on all cylinders when it came to drafting. And not that other teams didn't. I think I give the Jets the nod as far as who had the best draft. I think there's a lot of A's out there in the draft. I think it's one of the first drafts I saw where teams were actually filling holes that they needed to fill through the draft, which typically, you don't see that. You see reach in, you see, going for players, even the Eagles, right? Like even the Eagles didn't really reach for players. Now I know there's some Eagle fans out there that aren't happy with the Devontae Smith pick. I think they're insane, right? Like we're talking about the Heisman Trophy winner. We're talking about a kid that stayed on the field the whole time. We're talking about a kid that's got good humble beginnings, good humble qualities. If he turns into Deshaun Jackson, that's another thing. But Deshaun Jackson was Deshaun Jackson before he came to Philly. So, this kid Smith is I like him. I think it's a solid pick, but enough about the Birds. I'm sure you want to.
I will say this about the Eagles. It's definitely harder to rate a draft like theirs because the Eagles had a bunch of needs all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Where when you're comparing them to a team like the Browns or like, the Ravens or a team like that had a very specific need that both teams, in my opinion, addressed well. The Ravens needed to retool the line a little bit and get a couple receivers, which they did. The Browns need to address their secondary for the most part as well. Replace a couple cap casualties, which they did. I think the Chargers had a really great draft.
Yeah.
They needed to get a line. They basically retooled their line in an offseason. So they're definitely out there protecting Herbert. So, there are a lot of teams. I think where it gets kind of hard to do is when you try to measure a team like the Eagles or a team, even the Giants to an extent that had a few different needs that were pressing.
So, they're drafting a little bit more all over the place because they're trying to fill a bunch of different things as opposed to being able to focus on one or two specific areas.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the Giants a little bit.
I'm game.
So the Giants, I wasn't real impressed with their draft. And I'll tell you why. They got they had some good later round picks. I wasn't real impressed with their first round pick, who's I know he's from Florida, the receiver from Florida. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Tory, whatever his last name is. I just felt they could have got him last year, or they could have got him later, or there's more question marks about him than other people that were still on the board. And they didn't address that O-line at all. Like, of everything you'd think they would go after, I mean, it's great when you can list all these weapons you have, but as we saw with the Cleveland Browns in 2019, having a bunch of weapons doesn't mean anything if you can't protect your quarterback and he's running for his life the entire game. So I think they kind of missed a little bit. They picked up some picks for next year, which is great. The question is, will Gettleman still be around, to make those picks? Time will tell on that one. They got some good talent, especially in the later round. They did make some nice selections that I liked, but I'll tell you, the offensive line was the big need they had. I mean, Atticus was saying up and down, take a lineman before the draft, and then they went ahead and didn't even touch the offensive line. So
not a single one.
Yeah.
Not a single one. They had 6 picks, which is a really light draft, right? Let's be honest. 6 picks, I mean, not as light as Seattle, but it's light. There's 7 rounds. So, and they only had 6 picks. So there's that, right? I agree with the wide receiver. Like, he's decent, right? But like, Pitts was the number 1 receiver on that team. So let's not even pretend that, your wide receiver is second fiddle to your tight end. There's that. Doesn't mean I don't like the kid. Like, I do, not at 20.
Right.
I've seen a lot of A's. I've seen an A+ thrown out there. I saw a C somewhere along the line as far as draft grade goes for the Giants. I think Kuiper with a B+ is probably right on. Kuiper gets on my nerves, but the dude's been doing this for damn near 3 decades. So I got to give him some sort of kudos and props, and that he knows what the fuck he's talking about.
Well, and I will say this about Kuiper. Like, yeah, he gets on my nerves too. But the thing about Kuiper, and I kind of agree with his draft philosophy, it's not so much just what you drafted. It's what needs does it fill, and could you have gotten that piece later on and been just as happy, right? So, like we kind of are saying, like, sure, the receiver they drafted in the first round, he might go to be on the next Joe Montana, or I'm sorry, not Joe, Jerry Rice, for all we know, right? But the thing is, if you draft a guy at 20 that you could have gotten at 56, it's a bad pick, regardless of how well he turns out to play. And that's the thing, and that's why I don't like reaches. The most interesting draft that I saw, and I kind of want to get your opinion on it, was the Chicago Bears. They felt like they were throwing all kinds of caution to the wind. They gave up a couple picks to trade up like a few spots with the Giants to nab Fields. A lot of people seem to be giving them high draft grades. I guess people just like aggressiveness. I don't know, because I don't like, that's great that they got Fields, and we'll see how Fields turns out. But I feel like he's going to get just like destroyed on that offense. There's nothing on that offense that he has to work with. So great, he can run around a little bit more than, like, say, Nick Foles can, and he'll need to do that. But I don't think, I read a thing once that says when you're picking in the top 15, your goal is to have that pick make it so you're not picking in the top 15 next year, right? And I just don't. Even though they traded up to get there, I don't see Justin Fields by himself being the be all end all. What do you think about that?
So I think their draft is right in line with Giants draft, right? And let me finish my thought on the Giants first, right? Like, Dave Gettleman got a haul for those picks, right? And I think a lot of people are giving him an A+ for that alone, right? But, like, what is that going to amount to, right? So I'm not counting that. You know, the fact that they didn't address the line needs to be something that is looked at, right? And then when you flip it to the Chicago side of it, yes, they got Justin Fields, who may or may not be the number 2 quarterback in the draft, right? Time will tell. You know, it's going to be interesting. It's just like the draft that Darnold came out in and all those guys came out in, like who Baker was in that draft, you know, like who's the stud. Last player taken was who?
Lamar Jackson.
You know what I mean? And then he was an MVP. So, you know, Justin Fields, is he going to be an MVP? I'm not going to go that far, but like there's a lot of people that say he's got that stud potential. So I understand a move to go get him. And then their second round pick was a tackle, right? So that being 1-2 and then really solidifying, you know, with some late round picks, you know, I give, you know, it's a B+ to me. You know, you went and got your quarterback, you got him a tackle, and that's kind of what you want to do in the first 2 rounds. You know, you hope that 3 through 5, you know, you're filling some holes and you potentially got some day 1 starters. But draft 1 and 2, like for what you set out to do, I think they did it, you know. So good job on there. But I don't think it's like I saw a couple A's out there too. I'm like, no, come on, man. It's not an A. It's not an A draft.
Right. You know, a couple of interesting trends popped up in this draft too. I feel like we saw teams more so than in the past focusing specifically on one side of the ball. You definitely saw that with the Jets. You definitely saw that with the Browns. You definitely saw that with the Bears to an extent. I like that trend. I feel like that's the way you have to do it. Like, especially like we've talked on here in the past, you draft a new quarterback, you get him a weapon, you get him a line. You got to do that kind of stuff because it's not going to do any good if you go draft a quarterback and then three defensive players. It doesn't help your quarterback. He's not going to last long. I like New York's draft. The one thing I will say to that is kind of what I said beforehand. They're just in a tough division with good coaching, and a couple established teams already. Miami had a good draft and they were already up there. The Bills, I think Miami and the Bills is going to be really tight this year. After this draft going forward, I think, it's going to be a dogfight in that division. And as much as I want to say, like, maybe the Jets will win a couple more, I think they'll be in closer games, but there's going to be a learning curve for both the head coach and the quarterback. It's just going to be a little rough sledding. I will say you'd assume they and the Jaguars would have a similar draft because they were trying to, they're kind of starting from the same spot. And I will say the Jets head and shoulders above the Jaguars as far as their draft goes. That I'm concerned. But yeah, some other trends that I noticed, this whole pairing your quarterback with a guy he threw to in college, that's new, maybe even to the detriment of your team, a la the Bengals picking Chase with the 5th or 6th pick, whatever they were. I think that was a waste. Their problem last year wasn't throwing TD passes. It was keeping their quarterback upright. And again, now they didn't completely ignore their line, but I mean, you saw it with the Browns. They went out and they redid their line in one off season. Boom, instant difference. You're seeing it with the Chargers. They found their quarterback. They went out and they put a line in front of them, almost to the detriment of everything else. Right? Yeah. That's what you got to do. And I like Burrow. I feel bad for Burrow. I don't know if I like that trend. The Eagles did it. We'll see how that works out. And was it the
Eagles tripled up on it, right? So right. Hurts threw to Devontae Smith when he was at Alabama. And then they went and got the center who probably wound up playing guard for his first few years in the league, right? Or until dude decides to stop playing. But it's weird. I don't know if we can count the Eagles though, because it wasn't in the same draft, right? But Cincinnati baffles the fuck out of me, right? I think they blew a prime opportunity. Now they did go out and get a tackle in round 2, right? So we'll see. Is it worth passing up on Jamar Chase? We'll see. I mean, most tackles aside from Sewell didn't go until late in the first round and in the second round. So, maybe they still got a stud. Time will tell.
I want to switch gears a little bit. Were there any players in the draft that you had your eye on, whether it be up front or a later round pick that had your eye on that you were hoping the Eagles would grab and they just kind of skipped out on that you're kind of down about?
Well,
Or
they passed over Joke. There's that one. Tony Fields II from West Virginia. I liked him at linebacker.
Both of those guys are Brownies. Just going to point that out.
Yeah. The Dallas pick. I mean, I wanted Parsons. Let's just not pretend that's not the case. I can't be mad with Smith. That's who the Eagles wanted, you know. And if you think about it, right, like they traded back, got a first-round pick out of the deal for next year, and then they traded up and gave away a third, essentially, to get the same guy they would have taken at 6, because Jamar Chase was going to be gone. So they essentially, I mean, I gotta give it to them, man. Like that's a solid move on their part. They wanted Smith all along. They got him, and they got a first rounder for next year. That's pretty crazy. So
yeah, I mean, we're seeing there are a lot of savvy moves by different GMs in this draft. You know, the Browns had the trade up where they essentially traded up in the second round to get Joke, and they essentially just swapped picks. They didn't really give up anything. They just went from having 2/3 and 2/4 to having 3/4 and 1/3. So they didn't even give up a pick, and you know they were able to go up and get their guy. You know, we've already touched on Gettleman getting more picks for next year. Was there anyone whose draft you didn't particularly like? I know a bunch of people have been piling on the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders have any, like, I think we're seeing the good and the bad to tying a coach into a 10-year contract. It just seems like there's no strategy. They're just blowing things up. Like they went out and got a really good line a couple years ago, blew it up. Now they're redoing their secondary. I think they drafted like 4 defensive, defensive backfield people, like 3 safeties or 2 safeties. And I couldn't tell you looking at their draft what their goal is. But aside from them, I think they're given an easy target. Were there any other drafts that kind of made you scratch your head? Cincinnati, we already kind of mentioned.
I don't think Pittsburgh drafted impressively at all. I like their first 2 picks. You know, I think Najee Harris and I think Freiermuth, the tight end, they're pretty solid picks. You know, but they need some serious offensive line help, and they need another backup quarterback, and they didn't go get one at all. Like they could have gotten Kellen Mond, they could have gotten Davis, they could have gotten somebody,
right?
You know, but they didn't. So I would say them. And then New Orleans is a weird one. Like New Orleans is just, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say they're in rebuild mode just because Drew Brees retired. But, you know, I would have liked to see them do a little bit more. You know, they don't have anybody. They don't have a wide receiver to play with Michael Thomas. They don't at all. They need a cornerback. They need linebackers. So they got one in the 3rd, and that's it. Well, they got a linebacker in the 2nd, but I just don't. I don't love the class that they drafted. And to go back to your other question, Jabril Cox, who also wound up on Dallas, would have been another player that I would have liked to see the Eagles draft. And then who's the guy that they both went in the fucking division. The Giants drafted what's his name? Ojulari.
Yeah.
Which I also thought was pretty solid.
Yeah, I was big on Gainwell, who actually ended up on the Eagles. Like, because eventually, you know, and I obviously belong to a couple Cleveland things, and I kept saying Gainwell, and everyone's like, well, we got running backs. I'm like, yeah, but we're not gonna be able to keep Hunt and Chubb together forever. Like, unless they're both willing to take below market value, which why would they? Especially at the running back position where you're only, you know, you only have like a 5-6 year window for most running backs. Why, you know, and both of them have already missed time for various reasons. Sooner or later, one of them is going to be a cap casualty, or they're just going to want more money than we can afford to pay them. I like the idea of getting Gainwell and having him sit for a year, and then, maybe Hunt leaves next year and we have Gainwell ready to step in. That was the guy I really wanted. So, good pick for the Eagles there. Yeah, and the sad thing is, just you mentioned the Steelers. I like Najee Harris. Seems like a solid dude. I feel kind of bad for him because they don't have a line. Like Najee Harris, he's better than what they had, but now they have a much worse offensive line. And a running back in and of himself is not going to change their running game. They need a combination of things. So maybe it's just, hey, take your lumps this year and next year, but then they're going to they're going to have a rookie quarterback at some point, right? So I feel like Najee Harris just went to like possibly one of the worst possible situations, just because it's a team in flux that doesn't seem to want to admit that they're in flux, and they're just not drafting to they're not drafting to build. They're drafting to kind of prop up Big Ben, but they're not even doing that in the right way, in my opinion. So we'll see where that goes. But hey, you know what? Easier path for the Browns. I'm not going to complain too much about it. So we got to admit now, Browns in the Super Bowl sounding kind of sounding kind of nice,
Super
right?
Bowl just yet, man. Slow down.
There's one other draft I kind of want to touch on, and we've kind of mentioned them a couple times already. The Dallas Cowboys had an interesting draft, in my opinion. They drafted Parsons. They drafted who's the other guy you just mentioned from LSU?
Cox.
Yeah, they drafted a couple linebackers. They already had a couple linebackers. Then they turn around and not pick up Vander Esch's option for his 5th year option. So they have a real crowded linebacker room, is what I know so far. And that, if anything, on their defense was, at least in my opinion, okay. I get Sean Lee left, but I don't know, man. Like that was their one strength on the defense, right? Like you didn't question the linebacking core, and now they have a real crowded linebacking core. And I guess they did pick up a couple DBs as well. But yeah, their draft was real all over the place too. I didn't really feel good about what they did outside of Micah Parsons, who I liked. And yeah, like individually their picks aren't bad, but when you look at it as a collective and what they needed on defense, I don't think I understand what they're going for. What do you think?
So they needed to so the first thing, Vander Esch, I didn't put 2 and 2 together until I read it when they didn't sign their 5th year option, right? Like he had neck surgery. That's a pretty big deal for a linebacker, right?
Right.
And he had some health concerns coming in, right? Like he was getting hurt. And then he broke a collarbone. So like he had one solid season, and it was a monster season. Like he destroyed the Eagles in his rookie year with like 19 tackles, a fucking interception, just played lights out, right? But the last 2 years, he's missed half the game. So there's that, right? So, and then Sean Lee going. So now they draft Cox, and they got Parsons, and they still have Smith, right? So I think they're pretty set at linebacker. They got a cornerback. They drafted a bunch of corners. They drafted a bunch of D ends and D tackles. And they got a couple linemen, right? And another wide receiver just for shits and giggles. But I don't think it was super bad. I think they focused on the defensive side of the ball, which I think they needed to. I could go here and say, if their line, similar to Philly, right? If their line comes back healthy, they're a problem, right? Like it's that simple, right? If Philly's line comes back healthy, they're going to be a little bit of a problem for some people, man. I don't care what their record was last year. They didn't play with an offensive line that, was day one starters through the entire season. So, and I don't think Dallas did either. So, that's the big question, right? Like that's going to dictate the NFC East is health on your offensive line. The Giants' offensive line, I think, is shitty. So there's a big question there. And then there's Washington, and what is Washington, Fitzpatrick away from winning 10 or 11 games? I don't know.
Maybe last year. Like Fitzpatrick on Washington last year, I think is a different story. But this year, yeah, I mean, the East is going to be tough this year. Like as much as I rag on them, like you said, like, you know, the Eagles are going to be tough. I'm not saying they're necessarily going to win a lot, but they're going to be a tough out. It's not going to be, I think you're going to have a lot more like of a cohesive unit than you saw last year.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be interesting to see how long of a leash they give Jalen Hurts. But that aside, they're going to be a tougher out. Dallas has the offense where they don't even need to necessarily have an outstanding defense. They just need to have a average to slightly above average defense to really make some noise and you know, go from
keep them in the 20s. Keep them in the 20s, and they could win like 12 games.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, with that offense, that offense with under Dak before he went out was putting up 500 yards and averaging like what 36 points or something like that. So yeah, they could give up 4 touchdowns a game and still win the majority of those games. So I mean, I'm not going to go out and say like, you know, they're a shoo-in, but like you definitely Washington's hard because I feel like Washington every year, like they're just kind of like that other team in the division that no one thinks about. And then suddenly there they are at the end with like, you know, they're battling for first place all year round and then somehow they win. Like it's going to be hard. I mean, right now I'm a little down on the Giants just because they didn't address that line at all. And we've seen what happens with teams when you load up the offensive side of the ball with skill position players, but don't address that line. And then your quarterback's running for his life the entire time. Like that's how you get to 6-7 wins and no more. So we'll see. I mean, now I will say the Giants have a better defense than I keep comparing them to the 19 Browns. They had a better defense than the Browns did, but I still, that division is going to be tough. That's going to be a tough call. Like I forget who, I think I said, I think we agreed Washington was going to win it, but I don't know, man. Dallas could make some noise. It's going to be who stays the healthiest. Honestly, that's just what's going to, who gels together the quickest and who stays the healthiest. I do think Mike McCarthy still is kind of a hamstring. I don't know if he's necessarily the coach I'd pick to lead my franchise to the promised land, but you know, that's not my call to make.
So let's spin this in a different direction real quick, and it's going to make sense as we get there, right? Because it's going to come back to Washington. And like this, just so you know, I got a hard stop, so this is going to be a short version, even though it's just a Mike and Chris show. So you made a joke about Aaron Rodgers being in a Browns uniform.
Mm-hmm.
You give up Baker?
For Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
Sorry, Baker. I like you, but yeah, no doubt.
It's going to take more than Baker, first off, right? Like, first and foremost. You know, and what they're saying is probably 2 first-round picks, maybe Njoku, and then you get Rodgers and Josh Jackson back, right? That's the mythical trade that I've heard. I think there's 2 other teams that make sense for Rodgers if they do, in fact, trade him. One of them I mentioned, that's the Miami Dolphins. I trade Tua all day long, you know, all day long. And they have the defense and the young players, and it's fucking Florida. So, you know, I think the Dolphins have a realistic – if they are going to trade them, they have a realistic shot at making that happen. The other team, in my mind, there's probably 2 more. I don't like Denver, so I'm not even going to talk about Denver, right? But I think the Washington football team would be a completely different team if Aaron Rodgers was a quarterback. They'd be scary. Scary. It's insane. So what do you think about Aaron Rodgers? I know your better half's not there right now, but you know, that's your boy. So
yeah, you know, this is what happens, man. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is one of those dudes who he's cool, he's calculated, and he doesn't forget. And like, I think the stat is in the last 10 drafts, they've drafted 1 offensive player, and it was the backup quarterback in the first round, like the last 10 years or however long it's been. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, Aaron Rodgers I'm sorry, Aaron Rodgers is good for 5-6 wins a year by himself, right? Like with nothing, like literally just hiking the ball from the line and throwing it to whatever you have out there at wide receiver. He's good for 5-6 wins by himself, regardless of the skill positions you have around him. So why you don't even like make an attempt? Like, I'm sorry, like as the news was breaking, like I'm watching it with Liesel at the sports bar down in Hollywood, Florida, and she just and I get at the end of the day, they didn't even have that horrible of a draft, but it just feels like it almost felt like they went out of their way to antagonize him.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're going to do this. Well, guess what? We're going to take the second best DB on Georgia's team for our first round pick because Aaron Rodgers. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm sold on Baker. He seems to flourish in this offense. But if you're telling me I can give him Njoku up, who wants out anyway, and a couple first rounds for Aaron Rodgers, I mean, you'd have to consider a Super Bowl favorite, like at least contenders at that point, right?
To.
Like,
you'd have to.
I mean, yeah, I don't see how like, yeah, if that trade's anywhere close to being on the table, yeah, sorry, Baker, I like you, and you can come back and be a Brown sometime in the future, but I will take I will take that trade 100 times over. Now, if you're Washington, who would you give up as Washington though?
So they'd have to give up a couple first rounders, a couple second rounders, Fitzpatrick, and maybe some other player thrown in there, just for Rodgers. I think it takes 2 1s, 2 2s, and Ryan.
Where the hypothetical Browns trade you saw was just Mayfield, a couple firsts, and Njoku? Because I'll take that right now. Like that phone call better at least get made, right? Like I don't.
Yeah.
Because the Njoku on our team's a non-factor. Obviously, we wouldn't need Baker if we had Rodgers, and if we're winning the Super Bowls, I'll give up a couple 30-second picks. Like.
Yeah, and you could find somebody in a third, fourth round in the next week. I mean, call me crazy, but like we've seen really good quarterbacks come out of college the last few years, right? Like there's a new wave of quarterbacks coming in, and you're finding players, man. So they could get somebody late first round, second round, So if they were to make that trade, it's Aaron Rodgers is 37, so you got 3 years to find his heir apparent. 3 years.
Yeah, easily. Well, even more. I mean, Brady's how old, and he's doing it. I have no reason to believe that Aaron Rodgers can't at least play till 43 at a high level. Like he might not be 2020 Aaron Rodgers for the next 6 years, but I feel like 80% of 2020 Aaron Rodgers is still like a top 12 quarterback, right? So I mean, especially like behind a good line and some that running game. Now the pressure's not on him, man. You got this is a whole podcast in and of itself. You just opened up. I got a hard stop too. I got a couple more minutes here, and then I got to get going because I got somewhere to be at 6:30. But yeah, man. Do you have any teams that you totally redo your over under projections for? I know we haven't gone through all of them yet.
I think this is a way too early projection for over unders. Maybe once training camp starts, July, August, we redo. Right. I think we should do a fantasy show. I think we should redo this. As far as the over under goes, because I'll probably redo the Giants. I think I'd probably redo the Jets. Dallas is an anomaly. I don't think anybody else really. I mean,
based on who we've done, I'd honestly give Dallas a couple more wins just based on paper right now.
Yeah.
Because like I said, that team in that division, they have the offense. They just need their defense to be average to slightly better than average, and they're going to make some noise just because like we said, they just need to be able to hold teams to 4 touchdowns, which shouldn't be impossible to do.
No.
Yeah, the East is gonna be tough this year. Like the North is kind of gonna be like the Browns division. Like it's gonna be real top heavy, but the bottom's not gonna be great. Yeah, but one last thing I want to tease is I did talk to my friend who got drafted a few years ago. He played for a couple different teams. Actually, I think I'd have to look it up. I know he played in the Canadian Football League. I want to say I know they were in the Grey Cup. I don't know if he won the Grey Cup, so I'd have to look at that. But yeah, Landon Cohen's a friend of mine. and he agreed to do a show. So I'm going to work those details out with him. So I figured that'll be nice as we have this interlude until the preseason, just kind of talk to him about what getting prepared for the draft was like, what visiting team locker rooms were the best, stuff like that. I feel like that might be a fun little podcast we'll have here in a couple weeks. So I just wanted to tease that a little bit. But yeah, no, I'm glad we got a chance to do this today because I know this is like short for us, but yeah, that last one was kind of rough. And feel kind of bad because I know Gorky had some good points, and I don't remember what they were at this point. So sorry, Brandon. I know Atticus had some stuff to say about the. I know he talked about the Knicks. I remember that much, but yeah, I got bits and pieces of what everyone was saying. So
yeah.
Oh well. Anyway, man, we're just out of curiosity. Where'd you read about that pie in the sky Browns Baker Mayfield trade for Aaron Rodgers?
ESPN.
I'm gonna have to go look that up.
7 teams. They mentioned 7 teams that make sense, right? And they mentioned why it's only these 7 teams. Like they're not going to trade them in the division. It's not going to happen,
right?
They're not going to trade them to. You're not going to like Kansas City's not going to give up Patrick Mahomes. So there's that, right?
Right.
And they just still the logical teams that they can make a draft war to. They mentioned Tennessee, which would be fucking super interesting as well. The Raiders, the Broncos, Dolphins. They did mention the Giants. They mentioned and then the Browns and Washington.
One quick question, then I'll let you get out on this. Why is it so? This is like the third major quarterback that's been talked about getting traded this year. We've had Deshaun Watson, who we don't even know is going to play next year now. We had Russell Wilson, which was a thing for like 2.5 weeks, and then that just got smoothed over there in Seattle. And now Aaron Rodgers. Every single one of these guys has been linked to the Raiders for some reason. And for the life of me, I can't figure out, other than maybe wanting to live in Vegas, why all these quarterbacks are getting linked to why would you want to go play Patrick Mahomes twice a year? Why would you that team doesn't seem to have any clue of what it's trying to do. There are some weapons there. I'll give you that. But like I said, they they put together a great line, then they blow it up. Now their secondary is horrible. And it just, why do you think all these quarterbacks are getting just to go play with John Gruden? Is that they're just ESPN trying to throw John Gruden a bone? What do you think?
Maybe. I mean, there's a few places I would want to play, and Vegas is probably one of them, right? Like Vegas,
just off of the city, not necessarily because you think the team's gonna make it, but just like so like Miami, Vegas, California, maybe somewhere in California, just because.
No, I don't want to play in California, man. Fuck California.
Taxes. Okay. All right.
Taxes, and it's a fucking cesspool right now, man. California is drowning.
Right.
It's in bad shape, man.
Right.
And so in Vegas, you're close enough to Cali without having to be in Cali, right? So like if you have aspirations off the field and you're in Vegas, you're close enough, right? Same thing with Arizona. I'd play in Arizona.
So if there were trade talks for Michael Loy, just based, not worried about what the specific team and what the team could possibly do, but just city wise, where's Michael Loy? Where do we see fullback Michael Loy?
First off, I'm a tight end or linebacker, but we'll say tight end. But I would say Miami.
I'm not going to say nothing bad about Florida. That's for sure.
I'm going to say Miami because I could live in the Keys, and work in Miami. That would be the life.
So I'm going to do, definitely Miami. I'm going to say Vegas would be on the list. Arizona, some of the places we already talked about. The other one I'm going to throw out there is Buffalo. And the only reason why I'm going to say Buffalo is because if you happen to be the big name free agent that goes to Buffalo and then they win a Super Bowl within like the next 2 years, they're going to name a street after you, whether you were like the major contributing factor or not. They're going to name a street after you, right?
They might change the town's name to you. It might no longer be Buffalo.
It could be Lloyd, New York.
Yeah.
So yeah, Buffalo would be there just because they would name the city after you if you were the missing piece that got them a Super Bowl. Cleveland to an extent might be like that, but Buffalo has the proximity to New York City and all that. So Buffalo would be there just solely because they would rename something after me. And if there's anything I want in my life, it's to have something named after me. So.
Well, when I build my island, Chris, I'll name the street after you.
I appreciate it. It. I think we should get out of here on that. Just want to say, go Browns, Super Bowl, Super Browns.
All right. I'm not. Go ahead, man. Go Birds.
I'll catch you later, man.
All right, man.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, everybody, that wraps up our show for this week. Thanks for listening. Here's a random weekly fun fact for you. Per our crack research team here at the Football Trash Talk for Real Fans podcast, it took 16 presidential election cycles, a civil rights movement, 2 world wars, a trip to the moon, the birth of rock and roll, more than 26 seasons of Law & Order, all before the Eagles could figure out how to win a Super Bowl. Anyway, this has been the Football Trash Talk for Real Fans podcast. It's been a pleasure, and as always, F yo team. Stay safe out there.